What if, when you were a small child with what we call a really good imagination, what if people just said, "Oh, you have a really good imagination. Now do your homework." Or, "Oh, that's lovely, dear. You have such a good imagination. Now do X and Y." And eventually, it just, without anybody meaning to, it just taught you that all those things from the inside just weren't that important. You know, that kind of drains the color out of everything. Because if your images, what we call images, what Hillman calls images, what Henri Bergson called images, that's actually reality. And if your inner images aren't supported, I mean, some of them don't really match very well with consensus reality, and but if that, in what we call imagination, isn't fostered, if that interactive participation with the world between the inside and the outside isn't strengthened and celebrated, then eventually you're going to disappear into some sort of materialist, reductive version of yourself where your emotions are only chemistry and love isn't important and the colors are only in your head, and pretty soon, who cares? Let's just go to work.
Hello Bronco. Please prepare for your obligatory company compliance baseline test. Your bonus will be available after assessment is completed. Begin. Bell City linked. Bell City linked. Bell City linked. Can you peck twice? City linked. You believe in a materialistic world reducible to atoms. What you see is what there is. Peck. Your own consciousness is an emergent factor of brain activity. Spin. You are nothing but a complex machine. Peck. Evolution is purposeless. Life is meaningless. Click and consume. You are a rational economic bird. Spin. You're standing on top of Tower Bridge looking at the sky. You do not fly. Peck and spin. Bronco, you do not fly. Peck and spin. Baseline test complete. Urine sample required. Leave now.
My argument is that the imagination is everywhere. There is nowhere that there isn't imagination. And where we go wrong is to think that what we're doing isn't imagination. By some of the non-standard people in the physical sciences who themselves, some of them, are beginning to question whether a materialist paradigm is adequate for understanding reality, particularly consciousness. We've just been screwing this up. We do not understand what human persons are. Something's wrong in the West. I think we lost touch with the imagination. Literalizing is one mode of imagining. Oh my God. Literalizing is a mode of imagining. And you can't get away from it. You can't make your coffee in the morning if you don't take it literally. There's very little in our culture that helps us do that, except the arts. And who pays attention to the arts? They're just entertainment. The arts can and should be metaphysical statements and metaphysical teaching tools. Gaston Bachelard somewhere says that poetry is instant metaphysics, but nobody takes it that way.
Last man standing. Start. First blood. Target locked. Headshots. Final stand. Annihilation. Round winner. Mission accomplished. Game over.
it's not that they're going to disappear on you. I mean, there is something to this whole matter business. But if you take your basic rock and you talk about it with a quantum physicist, it disappears into vibration and energy. It's vibrating really fast and really little, and which is why it seems solid to us. But it's not really real. What do you mean by really? And then you look at this rock, and if you know any geology, all of a sudden your brain's just full of ideas and associations and analogies. And the rock, it's still there in some sense, but suddenly it's an entire universe of, if you know any geology, it's an entire universe of crystals and deep time and dinosaurs. And there's nothing in the physical world that doesn't infinitize itself when you start paying attention to it. Well, what if something like some of the Buddhist thinkers are right, and once you reach enlightenment, you just sort of fall in love with everything. Once you've had your experience of the angel, you become thereby empathetic with other beings of all sorts, trees, flowers, humans. And I mean, this sounds like 60s nonsense from California, but the social problems then become much less pressing. Somebody once asked Jung if he had any hope for humanity, and he said, well, it depends on how many people become self-conscious. This is kind of like that. I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman who we don't have to bring into this, whose experience I take utterly seriously, who said, I became God. Not me, not my ego. My ego totally disappeared. And what I learned was it's just love all the way down. End of story. And he says, but I cannot give this to anyone. You can only find it yourself, and there is no path. You have to do it yourself. What I need is continuing reminders of the wonder that being alive really is. I mean, I think it was like Rilke's last words while he was dying in agony were something like that. He said, never let them forget that living is glory. And people don't know that. Most people don't know that, and they don't, even people who are well-to-do, and if they don't know it, so it seems to me that at the level of practicality and, the little tiny screwdriver level, is people need to wake up a bit,
You are late. Prepare for your obligatory company compliance baseline test. Your bonus may not be available after assessment is completed. Begin. Bell City linked. Bell City linked. Bell City linked. Can you peck twice? City linked. You're standing on top of Tower Bridge looking at the sky. You do not fly. Peck and spin. You're standing on top of Citibank Tower looking at the sky. You do not fly. Peck and spin. You're standing on top of the Shard looking at the sky. You do not fly. Peck and spin.
I can fly.
Gird up your loins like a man. I will question you and you shall declare to me.
I had heard of thee by hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees thee. Therefore I abhor myself, and repent in dust and ashes.
You owe 5 farthings. Here is the chopper to chop off your head.